Douglas Fowles is here. Douglas is the president of the Leith Links Society. He's also an ex-captain of Muirfield Golf Club, the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers. Just to prove it, here's a picture of Douglas taken about 20 years ago as captain, presenting the claret jug to some minor golfer called Nick Faldo. We know what happened to Douglas because he's sitting with us. Whatever happened to Faldo, he must have always faded to obscurity. Also, Richard Ellis will be doing a live demonstration later on, something to really look forward to. And he's on the committee of the Society. And Bill Cairns, who is both on the Society Committee and the Statue Committee, which we'll come to later on. And as Michael said, Membership Secretary, Webmaster, General Dogs Buddy of the Society. People have often asked the question, where did golf start? Who was the first golfer? And if anyone says to you, I know the answer to that, they're not telling the truth. Because nobody knows where golf started, don't even know if it's what country it was in, and who was the first golfer. But I did troll the internet, and I did find this picture, and I wondered if this was a picture of the very first golfer holding the very first birdie putt. Who knows? Who knows? What we do know, though, is the part that John Rattray played in the history of golf. 1707 to 1771. He was in 1740, he became a Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons. And for a long time he worked as a surgeon in Edinburgh. He was a member of the Company of Archers, now known I think as the Royal Company of Archers, but when he was in it, it wasn't royal, it was just ordinary, but the Company of Archers. In 1745, Charles Edward Stuart, we'll all know better as Bonnie Prince Charlie, he invited the Rattray family to join him in the 1745 rebellion. And John Rattray treated the wounded after Bonnie Prince Charlie's victory at Preston Pans, which if you don't know is about 15 miles to the east of Edinburgh. But as we know, that campaign ended in failure, and John Rattray was imprisoned after the Battle of Culloden. He was sentenced to death. But he was saved from the gallows due to his golfing connections. So anyone who tries to say to you that golf is a good walk spoiled, no, because golf saved a man from death. He was released in 1747, and he went back to becoming a surgeon again in Edinburgh after all these exploits, and he died in 1771. What were the golfing connections that saved his life? Well, a guy called Duncan Forbes of Culloden, who was the Lord President of the Court of Session, he golfed regularly with John Rattray at Leith Links. And he contacted King George, and I don't know how he persuaded him, but it's something to do with golf or not, but he persuaded him to give him a formal pardon for his so-called sins of being on the wrong side in a battle. And I reckon John Rattray, that says an awful lot about him as a golfing partner, because for Duncan Forbes to have actually saved his life, probably Duncan Forbes knew that John Rattray was such a good golfer, he needed him as a partner again, and said, please stay Who knows? Okay, that's a brief summary of John Rattray's life. A lot of you will know a lot of that anyway, but maybe something in there you didn't. Before we talk about John and how he came to prominence in golf, just a quick step through the history. Leith's place in golf. For those of you who don't know where Leith is, it's part of Edinburgh nowadays. In fact, rather than people say Leith is a suburb of Edinburgh, us Leithers say Edinburgh is a suburb of Leith. Leith used to be the port, and it was separated from Edinburgh. It had its own bylaws, completely separate. towns, but in time, housing, etc., all joined up, and now there was a place called the Boundary Bar, which was on the exact boundary between Leith and Edinburgh, and there was outrage a few years ago when they changed the name to City Limits, because people in Leith always knew it as the Boundary Bar, because it signified the boundary between the old Leith and the town of Edinburgh. Way back in, 550 years ago, there is the earliest recorded evidence of golf being quite popular. James II of Scotland banned golf because it interfered with archery practice, and this was, they wanted people to be properly able to kill people. And although you feel like killing people at golf sometimes, that's not actually what that was about. And about 150 years later, the town council passed bylaws forbidding playing of golf on the Sabbath. You weren't allowed to play golf on Sunday. But a few years later, several men were actually fined for playing at the time of the sermonses, as they put it. So instead of being in the church, they were out on the golf course. And they got fined £20, which is an extraordinary sum of money back then. And they warned it. If they did it again, £100 fine. And extraordinary sums. But that was how seriously we took the banning of playing golf when we should be doing other forms of worship. Moving forward, King Charles I, there's a story that when he was playing golf on Leith Links, he was interrupted by a messenger to tell him about that the Irish were revolting. I'm not sure if there's any Irish folk here today, so I can see the Irish were revolting. It doesn't actually say, I don't know whether actually King Charles carried on his game and did something about the rebellion after he's finished his game of golf. I don't know. But moving on, James VII played the first challenge match at golf on Leith Links. His partner was a guy called John Patterson, who won, and the amount of his winnings that he was given by the king, he built a house on the High Street. And if you still go down the Royal Mile now, just near Canongate Kirk, on the left as you go down, there's a big plaque on the wall that says this was where John Patterson built his house with the winnings from his golf match with the king. Moving to the important stuff now. 1744, the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers, as they were called, even though it was in Leith, should have been the Honourable Company of Leith Golfers, I think. It's the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers. They organised a competition, and they asked the council, we want a trophy please to give to the winner. And this trophy was to be called the Silver Club. And that's a couple of actual pictures of it, which is in the archives. It's a club with silver balls attached that the winner each year had to attach a silver ball to it. The council said, yeah, okay, you can have your trophy, but one of the conditions is that you have to set down rules. I don't know if that means that up till then anything went and folk made it, a bit like you try and get away with it golf, now you make up the rules as you go along. I don't know, but as a result, the first rules of golf were written in Leith on the 7th of March 1744. What we have today here is a framed copy of the original rules. It's not the original rules, unfortunately, but one of our members of the society was given that as a present. And by all means, please have a look at all this afterwards. But that's a copy of the original 13 rules of golf. The captain, at the time of that, in 1744, was John Rattray. And he is a signatory on there, the signatory to the original rules of golf. We talk about St Andrews as the home of golf. It's not true. Not true. St Andrews did pick up these rules and adapt them for later use, but the first rules of golf were written in Leith, not St Andrews, and I'm afraid to say from a number of you folk, not in the United States either. Sorry. After John Rattray's time, 80 years later, interest in golf had started to wane, And this honourable company of golfers at Leith Links was wound up in 1831. They moved to Musselburgh. If you know Musselburgh, there's the race course, and there's the course, 9-hole course inside it. That's still mainly the same course that they used all that time ago, nearly 200 years ago. And about 55 years later, they moved to Muirfield. So that's why Muirfield is called the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers, even though it's about 20 miles away from Edinburgh. And it's kind of a full circle, because I can come back to Douglas now, who's an ex-captain, you see, and that minor personality called Nick Faldo. But that's how from Leith it moved to Musselburgh, and then it moved to Muirfield. When an international match took place, there's actual evidence of that in 1867, and by then golf had started to come up again in Leith. Trouble was, the public footpaths, the council were laying them across the links, and the area wasn't just used as golf, it was used for lots of different purposes. And in 1904 the council closed the course, so it brought to an end about 500 years of golf being played on that particular patch of land. Here's a picture of Leith Links at the present time. You'll note the beautiful sunny day, cloudless sky, because they call it sunny Leith. You can see here there's a football pitch, or as some of you folk from across would say, soccer. And if you can see just there, that's a cricket pitch. So it's used nowadays for cricket, for football, for all sorts of things, just as it was a way back then. In 1984, the Rotary Club built a cairn on the links to commemorate Leith's part in golf's history. And talking to people earlier on who tried in vain to find the cairn on Leith Links and failed, and I think they gave up before their marriage gave up, the way they were under the impression. It is there, and that can prove it, there it is. That's what you were looking for. That's the cairn that was put up nearly 20 years ago. On the back there's a picture of the rough layout of the course. Logo, the man who, with the silver club there, he used to parade through the streets before the event took place each year, leading the golfers through the streets and carrying, dressed up like that, carrying the silver club. The aim of our society is to increase the recognition of Leith Links as the home of the earliest recorded rules of golf and one of the game's prominent early locations. We believe that the part that John Rattray and Leith Links played in the history of golf really deserves to be recognised. So, what do we do to further this aim? This aim is all very well, but what do we do to further it? For a few days in July, we'll lay out Leith Links. The council gave us permission to set up a small golf course with 5 holes. We play with hickory clubs. We have some hickory clubs on display there, if you want to have a look at them. We play matches against Musselburgh, because it's a connection, and also Bruntsfield, Shortcoat, we have a connection with the history as well. We'll have a team event, and we'll have the Hickory Open Championship, and some of the trophies that we have on for competition are on the table here. Sadly this year, because of the weather, of the 4 events we managed 1. We're lucky to get 1 or 2. The rest weren't. But hey, we can organise. There was one time in the year it wasn't sunny Leith. There's a picture, just to prove it, of one of our holes, and there's actually the last green and the first tee goes right down. So we do, it's not a particularly long course, not nearly as long as the original course was, but at least we're playing golf using old clubs at exactly the same stretch of ground that's been used for these hundreds and hundreds of years. We have non-golfing activities as well. On the 7th of March each year, whatever day of the week it is, we celebrate the signing of the rules. We'll have an event, various events over the years, doesn't always the same. But basically, the one thing it has in common, strong drink is consumed, and we celebrate this important day in the history of golf. Commemorative tie, which is here in the Leith tartan, we were going to have some today with us for sale, but I'm afraid we left them, they're in Leith. So I'm sorry, but if you would like a tie, we could either probably give you the one off our necks for nothing, or we could see about getting one to you if you would like one. And Michael's got one he could take off his neck. We've got newsletters, we've got a few copies of our recent newsletter. By all means, take one if you would like to take one. And there's a statue project. A statue. Our plan is to erect a permanent memorial on Leith Links to both the rules of golf and to John Rattray. It's a challenge to get through all the various council and parliamentary regulations. You wouldn't believe the number of regulations that stop you doing something that's obviously a good thing. We are getting there though. We are definitely getting there. Quite a lot of prominent local people, including some politicians, have given their name to it. Everyone's supportive of it. Everyone says, great idea. Let's see if we can help you make it happen. This miniature was created by well-known Scottish sculptor David Annand. If you've been down the Royal Mile and you see the big statue outside the Canongate Kirk, he did that as well. This is, you may say it's looking funny as a golfer, it's a funny stance. That is the way that we used to stand in those days. Richard, I'm sure, will demonstrate that in a minute. So don't say, that's a funny way to stand at a golf club. That's how they did it back then. Again, by all means, come up and have a close look at that. And just in case you can't, that's a picture of it. An artist's impression how it might look at the site in Leith Links with the actual, all the landscaping round about it. Nothing's settled. It might not look like this, we don't know, but this is our ideas just now, to try and raise money to get that permanently in place for the regional side. Okay, where are we? The design of that is obviously complete. David Annand has been given the commission, did such a fabulous job on this, the maquette as we call it. He's been given the commission to do the life-sized statue. The site's been selected from a number of options. Budget, sadly, has been agreed. All the planning applications and all the legal issues are currently underway. Fundraising started. We're trying to raise a significant sum of money to get this. As much for the landscaping as it is for the statue itself, I think. We had hoped to maybe have it all ready for next year when the Open Championship comes back to Muirfield. We don't think that's likely now for various reasons out with our control, so we are aiming to have it ready for the Ryder Cup. Because after all, Europe's going to win the Ryder Cup, retain the Ryder Cup in America again in a few weeks' time. Everyone agrees with that, don't they? No. So we'll be winning it, retaining it again and again and again at Gleneagles in 2014. So talked a bit about John Rattray, who he was, why he's so important in the history of golf, and what our society is trying to do about it. The link between all that is clearly established. It's not just a vague notion, it's historical fact. There are documents that prove everything about this. And our society intends this to be remembered by future generations, because there is a danger that it will gradually lose through the mists of time, and it will get forgotten about. And we do hope you agree that this is a campaign that is very much worth fighting for. Okay, what can you do? Everyone's on the floor now, but what can you do? Become a member of our society, £12 sterling per annum, £1 a month. There are application forms there if anyone would like to join. We've got our website. You could do it through that. We'd be delighted if anyone decided to do that. Obviously, we're looking to start, continue fundraising for the statue. If you felt we were able in some way to support our fundraising, there are letters about that. Please take some away and have a look at it. Take information away from today on any of these leaflets. Spread the word. Please spread the word. Not just amongst Clan Rattray, but wherever you are, tell people about this. And you see some of the leaflets, our websites, details are there. Anyone can look at that. I introduced Richard Ellis earlier. Richard, you see, is well dressed for the occasion. We felt it would be appropriate just for Richard just to demonstrate just what you can do with hickory clubs. So I'll leave it over to you, Richard.
Right, maybe this is a good place actually. The great thing about hickory is that it's a living material. It needs to be polished and cared for and oiled and treasured. And it responds to bending. And the other thing about playing with hickory is, because you're not getting the immense distances that you do with steel clubs, you begin to value what the original designers of the course did in terms of placing bunkers and trees and banks and embankments. And you have to think your way around the golf course. The danger to my mind these days is people with these huge great metal soup plates simply bash the ball into the distance and then they just chip onto the green. Playing with hickory, you do have to think, what am I going to use? You take 5 or 6 clubs, and they've also got wonderful names like brassies with the brass plates, spoons, jiggers, niblicks, mashie niblicks. Much more interesting than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or Rescue Club 26. All right? So there's that. There's also the fact that in Leith rules we try and dress up. We put a kind of costume with the +4s, and if we're playing in competitions, we normally wear a jacket, which restricts the swing. But that's how they used to play, with a jacket. So they used to have to restrict their swings a little bit. And the other thing is the sound of a ball on hickory. It's that lovely clunk, clunk, clunk. Nowadays you get this tremendous kind of twang, twang, twang. Here it's a much more subtle and soft sound. And there's the whole aesthetics of playing with softer balls on wood and dressing up and just getting back to the kind of rhythms of the old game of golf. And that's why we love hickory in the Leith rules. That's why we're trying to engender interest in the origins of Leith. I came to Edinburgh in 1974, went down to Leith, I could find nothing about the history of golf, which I read about. I went to Musselburgh, I could find nothing about the history of golf in Musselburgh. And we're trying to put that right. We're trying to put that right. We're trying to say, if you come down, if you're interested in the history of the golf, this is where golf really started. This is the origin place of golf. And John Rattray's name is to be honoured, because we honour him in our society. So it's a terrific pleasure to come and talk to you. Have a look at the clubs here. If you've never tried, if you are a golfer and you've never tried hickory, try it. And you'll find it a terrific pleasure. Play with steels as well, but play with hickory. And people will start noticing you and looking at you and saying, "Oh, I used to use that as a boy. How do you play that? And these small heads, have you?" But you can, with a little bit of care, you can hit the ball a reasonable distance.